Hello everybody and welcome. This is World of Info and we're starting right away. Today we have the pleasure and the honor to have His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Peter Keveck, Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Mohammed at the controls, I'm Najla Naguib, and we'll be with you until 5 o'clock, so stay with us.
Well, it's always great to have with us Dr. Peter Keveck, the Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt. Now for 10 years tenure. This proves how great and professional diplomat he is, and how great is the confidence of the Hungarian government in the job that he has been doing very well all through these years, really.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation and for the opportunity for being here today.
With a master's degree in diplomacy and a PhD in comparative linguistics and a long career in diplomacy, definitely he is one of the greatest representatives of the Hungarian government in Egypt. And for us, Hungary remains a very important place in the hearts of all Egyptians, because as we always say when we have His Excellency as a guest, the famous train, the Magari, and the famous airport, Almaza, which is in referral to Count Almashi, who was a great expedition man and a great Renaissance man. We can use the word Renaissance very accurately. A count, a man who did a lot of expeditions in the desert, a man who did his tenure in World War II, a man who was an avid fighter, pilot, and a man who has faced a great challenge in the end of his life with great turmoil and great pain from the communists. So he is a distinguished hero, a Hungarian hero who lived part of his life in Egypt and part of his life in Hungary, and unfortunately died in severe pain in Austria after that in the early 50s. So we have, of course, the famous Mustafa Abdu, who was called the Magari, right? Because he was very fast as a football player. And we have the history of Hungary, a country that has seen a wild 20th century, as we say, suffered from World War I and suffered from World War II, and yet the Hungarians were able to recover all that. And we are talking today on our special program about the Treaty of Trianon of the 1920, that unfortunately was a great or a big shall we say, slit of the throat of the Hungary as a country, where 1/3 of the population was lost, 2/3 of the land of Hungary was lost, and still the scar is holding in the hearts of all Hungarians. Could you tell us about that and elaborate how things materialized to regain the confidence of the Hungarians in themselves after that?
Well, it was a very difficult situation because, as you put it rightly, Hungary was, I think, the country that was punished most after World War I. In the Peace Treaty of Trianon, our country lost 2/3 of its territory and 1/3 of the population, which was a very, very severe punishment at that time. Nevertheless, the consequence was that large groups of the large parts of the Hungarian nation remained in neighboring countries, although it was not their own decision to change their place to become citizens of another country, but it was because of the history became like this. So it was a huge historic trauma for our nation, but wounds must heal, and I think we are on the right way to deal with this situation, and we believe in a common European future, and we believe that we have managed to find a way to reunify our nation.
I think the decision of the current Prime Minister, Mr. Viktor Orban, in order to repatriate without letting them leave their states, their land. These are the original Hungarians, or they are Hungarians, and they've been Hungarians for hundreds of years, and that they were forced to belong to other neighboring countries to Hungary. I think Mr. Viktor Orban was able to solve this problem, at least from the emotional point of view and from the national point of view. How was this solution made, sir?
Well, we cannot change the past, but the present and the future is in our hand. When the current government took office in 2010, the decision was made to offer the opportunity to those citizens of other countries, neighboring countries, who have Hungarian origin, to apply for the Hungarian citizenship, for the Hungarian nationality. And indeed, many of them, hundreds of thousands of them, more than 1 million by now, applied, and they got the Hungarian nationality for the simple reason because they have the they are part of the Hungarian nation in their heart and in their mind and in their emotions. So for that reason, it is very normal that we should express our solidarity with them. We should express, Hungary should express that we consider them as part of our nation, those who belong to us in their heart. For that reason, I think this was a very good way of healing old wounds. Of course, as I said, we cannot change the past, but what we can do for them is done. And I'm really happy to see that many of these people use the opportunity to get the Hungarian nationality. They have equal rights like any other Hungarian. They can vote during the elections, during the parliamentary elections. They enjoy all the rights what other Hungarians do.
The nice thing about Hungarians, they are very special people. The fact that Hungary has been, as they say, it is the eastern gate of Europe, and Hungary has defended Europe for many years and many times, and always Hungarians felt that they have done their load in protecting Europe, and they've done their work in protecting Europe with sometimes not the possible reward, especially after the Trianon Treaty. And also the Hungarian language is one of the most sophisticated languages that is related to Latin. I mean, the idea that it has a special place, and they are speaking a special language that is not very much related to other European languages, makes the Hungarians having a special trait by themselves, right, sir?
True, we are a linguistic island in Europe. Actually, our language, Hungarian, is not related to the languages of the neighboring countries. Our language is related to the Finnish and Estonian language. It's a Finno-Ugric language, but we are part of a larger linguistic family, which are the Ural-Altai languages. That means that the Turkic languages of Central Asia and East Asia are related to Hungarian as well. Originally, our nation came from the central part of Asia, from the southern part of what is called today Russia, more than 1,000 years ago, 1,100 years ago. At that time was it when the Hungarian tribes arrived in the basin of the Carpathian Mountains, where we are located now. But it was a long way and a long history. What remained from this period of time is our language, because in terms of culture and religion and identity, we became Europeans, but our roots are in Asia, and our language comes also from there. And we pay attention to keeping our Asian identity, Asian roots as well. Just recently, Hungary became a guest in the different political meetings of the Turk nations parliamentary parliamentary fora and so on. So we use this knowledge to revitalize our ties to the place, to the nations where our roots come from.
This is very interesting, because I love it, the idea that an Italian writer has said that there is a mystery of the Hungarian talent, because the number of Hungarians who won a Nobel Prize and the number of Hungarians who won medals in Olympics are much, much higher in comparison to the percentage to the population than any other country in the world. And this gives an idea that there is definitely a mystery of Hungary talent, whether this because of the roots of the Asian roots or because they were the guardians of Europe from any invaders from the East or whatever. What do you think was the mystery of this talent, please?
Well, I think the mystery is a very simple one. It's the education system. We have had good schools from former times. The Hungarian education system has been one of the best ones in Europe, and for our country, we have never had major natural resources. The only opportunity to survive has always been being good at education, and what we have had, these are our hands and our minds. So we have been forced to use these two tools to survive and to make the best of our country. For that reason, education system has always been a top priority for Hungary, and the results speak for themselves. The same goes for sports. Indeed, as you said, the proportion of Olympic medals per capita is one of the highest in Hungary. I think sports is also a type of survival. In a country with such a troubled history like ours, it has been important to excel and to find ways of survival and to make ourselves strong for the daily struggles of the life. And I think education, science, and sports are excellent tools for that.
Mm-hmm. And this brings us to Budapest, a city that I really love and enjoy visiting every now and then. And I feel that it is very much a very welcoming city in Europe. And it remains, as they say, Hungary remains Budapest-centered, because it is the biggest populated city, and with its nearby suburbs, almost a lot of Hungarians occupy this place and live in this area of major Budapest, as they say. And therefore, it makes this city a very special city in Europe, a big city in a small country, which is, of course, I mean, with all due respect, it's not a very big country, Hungary, but yet Budapest is one of the biggest and most successful capitals of Europe and of the world. Could you tell us about also the secret of the success of Budapest?
Well, I think Budapest has always been the heart of the Hungarian nation, and we pay attention to keeping our city in a good shape and even to improve always its shape. I think it has been like this since the Middle Ages, I think. Of course, during the Ottoman era and during the liberation war from the Ottomans, Budapest took a lot of damage. I mean, the cities of Buda and Pest at that time, because the unification of the two parts of the city came in the 19th century. But even before the Ottomans, during the time of King Matthias in the 15th century, Budapest was Buda was one of the major centers of Renaissance in Europe. It is a proven fact that renowned personalities of the Italian Renaissance came to Buda at that time, to the court of King Matthias, to bring to spread the ideas of Renaissance also in Hungary, and it was a very well managed and very good result at that time. Unfortunately, the Ottoman era that held for 150 years from 1526 till the liberation of Buda, let's say in 1686. It caused a huge destruction, and at that time, in late 17th century, we almost had to start everything from the scratch. But the Hungarians believed in a better future. There was a belief, a faith always that we must be able to stand up, even if we are in a desperate situation, like after 150 years of Ottoman rule, or like after the Trianon Treaty, or whenever. And the same went for our capital, because we managed in the 18th century, 19th century, we managed to build a new and modern capital with prestigious buildings and with a very special spirit, which reflects the ideas of our nation, the personality, the character of our nation. And I think this is the secret why others, our guests, likes our capital so much, because it truly reflects how the Hungarian spirit is, how the Hungarian character, the Hungarian mind is. I think this is the secret.
Definitely, it's a very nice and beautiful, well-kept secret. Well, after the break, we'll have to talk about the reform after the 1990 independence, which is really very important for our listeners to grasp how the country has been changed from the communist system, with a lot of injuries in between on the people, and how the government tried to protect the people from the prospects of going to the free market, as they say.
So back again, word of info, and you can call us at 257-89407 with His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Peter Keveck, Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University.
His Excellency Dr. Peter Keveck, the Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt. We want to talk about the miracle, because every country from the Eastern Bloc, which was a member of the Eastern Bloc and Warsaw Pact, suffered very much during the early years of the 90s to do the reform, to change from a communist system that is presenting the welfare of the population, but at the same time with a lot of fallacies. People are not allowed to have any commodities, or they are having only basic commodities. If they want to have a good car, or if they want to have a better lifestyle, they were not able to do that. And then suddenly the market was open, everyone can buy everything, but suddenly the amount of money that was present in the pockets of the whole populations of the Eastern Bloc was very few. And it was a big, tough situation for the politicians at that time, how to make this reform with the least possible pain for the population. How was Hungary able to face this? Especially that Hungary was for some time denied the right to enter into the European Union, and has been always postponed, instead of admitting Hungary on the spot to be a member of the EU. It took almost 10 years to allow them in. Tell us about this period of turmoil, please, Your Excellency.
Well, in 1990, when communism collapsed, all the nations of Central and Eastern Europe were full of hope for a better future. But of course, unfortunately, there were some mistakes also that were made. First of all, the first governments in the 90s, the first freely elected governments in the 90s, made the mistake of exaggerating the privatization of the economy. They made also the mistake to make too much liberalization for the economy as well, which was not good, because it turned out to cause suffering to the people, and problems for the economy even. So after it was recognized, a new course had to be made, and the financial crisis of 2008 highlighted again that our economies, also in this region, also in the Hungarian economy, was quite vulnerable. The unemployment rate was high at that time, around 13%. The inflation rate was high, and the economy was not in a bad shape, mainly due to the mistakes that were made after the collapse of communism. In 2010, we got a new government that had got a very strong support by the population, a very robust majority in the parliament. In 2010, that was the government of Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his party. This government took the right measures at the right time. Because and if you recall your memories of 2008, 2009, 2010, the European and the world economy was in a very bad shape and was suffering of the consequences of the world economic and financial crisis. And most of the governments responded to the challenges posed by the crisis by restrictive measures. Our government was an exception because we said that the crisis was caused mainly by the big banks and some big multinational companies. So the price of managing the crisis should not be paid by the population. The burdens of the population shouldn't be increased, but by those who were really responsible for the economic problems, mainly the banks. So one of the first measures of the government was the crisis tax, which was imposed on some big banks, on some big multinational companies, to cover the costs of the crisis management. For the ordinary people, but especially for the small and medium-sized companies and for the families, the taxes were decreased. In order to encourage the small and medium-sized companies,
it was given a flat rate of 16%, right?
Yes, for job creation, and for the families to encourage them to have more children because this is a serious challenge of the Hungarian society.
The
as
demographic
well.
population, by the way, is unfortunately is going to be negative in 2030 if it goes in the same way. So the prospect of encouraging families to have more children, how far is it going now?
It is going very well because the average number of children in Hungarian families since 2010 increased quite strongly. We are not yet there where we would like to be, but we are on the right track, and the government introduced really measures which are very, very useful for Hungarian families and encourage them to have more children. The target is to have not less than 2 or 3 children per family. For example, one of the most successful programs is, I think, the financial support for young families to have a home. To have a house or an apartment of their own. The government offers them very attractive financial incentives on the condition that they will have not less than 3 children within 10 years. It works very well. Until now, I think about 100,000 young families and couples joined this program.
That's very good.
And I think it is showing results. As I said, we are not yet there where we would like to be, but we are on the right way with this.
So definitely there has been a reform on the prospect of the health, education, and the industry, because the industry before 1990 was always going into the branch of heavy industry and steel industry, the industries that were a bit polluting the environment and very much fuel consumption with the increasing rate of using of coal and things like that. So how things have changed now into high-tech industries has been quite easy to do that because of your having the brain for that or the minds available?
Well, we have had as you put it, the brains and the mind, but we needed also the know-how and the technology, and that's what came in the starting. After the fall of communism, Hungary was the country that received the most investment per capita in the countries of Central and Eastern Europe. We became a country of car manufacturers. You can find, I think Hungary is the only country or one of the very few countries in the world that has, for example, all the 3 big premium cars producing, meaning Mercedes, Audi and BMW. As well, but I could tell you other industries as well. What we are having in mind now, it is the re-industrialization of the country. because after the collapse of communism, the Hungarian industry suffered a lot. The wrong policy of privatization had the consequence that many Hungarian companies with long-standing industrial traditions were closed by the new owner, and it turned out that they bought it only to privatize it only to close it down in order not to have a competitor for their own products. This goes for foreign companies, of course. So we had the situation that we had companies that wanted to buy a Hungarian company, and after a while we found these companies closed because the new owner said that the situation was worse than he expected, and most probably his intention was from the very beginning not to invest anything. He just wanted to prevent this traditional Hungarian company to recover and to become a competitor for his company. So that led to a huge loss of job opportunities and of Hungarian industrial potential as well. The government that took office in 2010, which is our current government as well, put therefore in mind the reindustrialization of the country, and the results speak for themselves. Our unemployment rate is now one of the lowest ones in Europe. Basically, unemployment doesn't exist anymore. Quite the contrary, we started having a shortage of workforce in Hungary, which is, if you compare it how it was in 2010, with the unemployment rate of more than above or around 13%, I think it's a huge success. And the GDP is growing also very well, not only because of the big international companies, but also because of the small and medium-sized companies, which created many job opportunities and which are doing a very, very good job. Hungary belongs now to the countries. Today, I think there are only 30 countries in the world that are able to export above 100 billion euros a year. So Hungary became a very robust export nation. Our figures hit new records every year. I think this is also a result of the policy called reindustrialization of the country and support to the small and medium-sized companies in Hungary.
Another point, which is before or during the communist system, there was a branch of the economy was built on agriculture, and as time goes with the industrialization, agriculture sector has been diminished, and yet up till now, Hungary is able to supply the food needed for its population is always produced in the country itself. This happened because of the fact that agriculture has been what we can call industrialized more, or something like that, or in spite of the fact that the number of population involved in agriculture has been reduced.
I think Hungary has very good conditions for agricultural production.
The soil is beautiful, yes.
The soil is excellent. We have enough water. We have ideal weather conditions. So the Hungarian land is fertile, excellent, yes. Very, very, very fertile. The proportion of agriculture became the added value of agriculture became smaller to the whole GDP, but this is not because the significance of agriculture shrank, but other branches grew so significantly, like industrial production, for example, that proportionally the GDP within the GDP, agriculture became a smaller part. But in itself, agriculture is flourishing, and it is able to produce much more, actually significantly more than what the country needs. We focus on quality rather than on quantity. Hungarian food products are excellent quality. We have a very well-developed system of quality control of the food chain. So nowadays it is possible to control where the different type of food products come from the garden or the field till it comes on the table, which is excellent to provide healthy and tasty food for the population. So we focus definitely on quality rather than on quantity, but even so, it is we have 2 or 3 times more food products for the export than what we need. So high quality Hungarian food products, meat, fruits and vegetables, or any kind of food products can be found in many countries, and they are rather in the higher ranking segment than in a mass quality.
That's lovely. I think after the break we have to talk about the secret of success of the government, which is built nowadays on the shoulders of the Prime Minister. We have to discuss the role of Mr. Viktor Orban after the break. Okay, sir?
Great.
So back again with Word of Info with His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Peter Keveck, Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt, and Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University.
The Prime Minister, Mr. Viktor Orban, has a great political career behind him and in front of him, of course. I mean that he was a distinguished young gentleman in the year 1989 with a degree in law, and he was having a scholarship in Oxford, and yet he came back and he gave a very important speech in 1989 at the day of the funeral of the great Amr Nagy and his colleagues who were sentenced to death after 1956 revolution. And in this particular speech he asked for the communist regime to fall, and he asked for the Soviets to withdraw their forces, something which was very courageous at that time, and everybody took a great note of this young 26 years old gentleman in 1989. Tell us about Mr. Viktor Orban, because I think you have met him quite time, and he is now probably, if he wins the next election, he will be the longest serving Prime Minister in the history of the 56 Prime Ministers of Hungary.
Well, as you put it rightly, the funeral of Imre Nagy in 1989, it was not only a funeral or a re-funeral of a person, but it was also the funeral of a regime, of the communist regime, because at that time it was clear to the population of the country that it cannot continue as it was in the last 40 years before. But nevertheless, we shouldn't forget at that time Hungary was still under the occupation of the Soviet army. Tens of thousands of Soviet soldiers and tanks and military equipment was in Hungary, and so, as you put it rightly, it took a very high degree of courage to stay there, like Viktor Orban did it at that time as a young leader of the opposition, of an oppositional party, and to deliver this speech that he did. It was a huge risk, actually, and a very, very courageous step. And it gave a sign, it encouraged others also, us, our generation, to be confident in our future and to look into a new world, to have the belief that the old days of the communist regime was over, and a new era has to come, a new era of freedom and democracy. That's what we believed in at that time, and what gave the hope for our generation, because I belong also to this generation. So I think this speech there in June 1989 was a very important, very significant one, and it gave the direction to the future development of Hungary and the Hungarian democracy to a very large extent.
It was the milestone in the career of Mr. Viktor Orban, who has seen success to become a prime minister in 1998 to 2002, and then he lost the elections and stayed in the opposition as the opposition leader from from 2002 till 2010, and there was a sweeping victory twice, 2010 and 2014, and then 2018 as well. So this makes him has a very special place in the hearts of the Hungarians, because he was stating as a state of mind that we are members of the European Union, but we are a nation. It's not the United States of Europe. It is a country that are members of the EU. This makes him another, at that time, a single singing bird in the herd. I mean, different than other European leaders. Tell us about this, and how did he gain all this popularity?
I think the secret is a very simple one. The secret of his popularity is a very simple. It is, we can call it good governance. If you look back to those 8 years, more than 8 years since he has been in office in a row, as I mentioned earlier, the unemployment, which was a very significant problem before, unemployment disappeared. People have more money in their pocket. The economy is booming. All the figures are hitting new records each and every time. Hungary is doing better, not only in terms of economy, but also in terms of cultural successes and regaining the identity and having more confidence in ourselves and more confidence in our future. And this is what our nation needed, because we had, as you know, a very troubled history. And after the collapse of communism, there was a huge degree of disappointment in many people, because the freedom that we regained didn't bring the results that many people expected. But after 2010, the results started coming, and we felt that the economy is performing better. And not only the economy, but also as I said, the general feeling in our country became a completely different one. And this is the reason why he and his party is winning one electoral victories after the other, and the last one was the latest one in April 2018 was a particularly significant one, because the turnout was almost 70%, very high, and
in the middle of great attacks from the opposition, trying even to do character assassination of the prime minister, right?
It's not only the opposition. I would say it's coming from foreign media as well, and from some other foreign politicians. But as I heard it once, Prime Minister Orban saying that he was not elected by foreign journalists or by foreign politicians or by foreign NGOs, but by the Hungarian citizens, and so consequently he and his party, his government, should fulfill the needs and desires of the Hungarian nation, not of those foreigners, foreign quarters. So I think it is what his government is implementing. This is exactly for what they were elected. This is their electoral program. Concerning Europe and the European Union, we believe in a Europe of the nations. We don't believe in a United States of Europe. We are convinced that Europe can be strong only if it preserves its national characters. If its nations remain strong and get even stronger. We don't believe in a United States of Europe. We are convinced that a Europe with nations of
sovereignty and
sovereign nations
and
can be successful only.
And this gives us the right way to pass to the relation between Egypt and Hungary, which has been always progressive through the years. Like we talked about the famous Hungarian train and the famous Mr. Hidikuti and Count Almashi. There is a special chemistry of friendship that has developed between the Prime Minister Viktor Orban and President Sisi, with 2 reciprocal visits from each side. I think this gives us an idea of what type of relation and what type of improvement of economic cooperation between the 2 countries. Could you tell us more about this, please, sir?
Both countries, Egypt and Hungary, are natural partners for each other. This is my belief and this is my conviction. I think what you said, it is absolutely right. There is a very good personal chemistry between Prime Minister Orban and President Sisi. But besides that, there is a strong need in both nations, in both countries, to develop stronger relationships, because both countries can give a lot to the other. Together we are stronger. Look at the past and the present of our economic cooperation. It is a very glorious one. If we look back to the famous Magari trains, or what you said in terms of football, Puskás and Hidekuti, but we can look at the present and the future as well. We are about bringing back Magari trains to Egypt.
That's nice.
Just a couple of months ago, last September, we signed a tripartite agreement about a huge project in Hungarian, Russian and Egyptian cooperation to build trains together. I think it is a tremendous success, and it is a very big project. And it can be just the beginning of a new chapter in our cooperation. But I could mention you other fields as well. For example, in all other kind of industry, machine production, agriculture, like greenhouses, or water treatment, wastewater management. But let us not restrict ourselves to industry also, but we can mention also the services, tourism, for example, in both ways. I would like to see more Hungarian tourists coming to Egypt to discover the beauties of this great country, and not only the Red Sea resorts, but also for cultural tourism like Luxor, Aswan, Abu Simbel, and so on. And we are offering the opportunity to Egyptian tourists as well to discover our country, particularly in terms of spa and health tourism and medical tourism, which we offer excellent opportunities for, or the cultural beauties of our country. As you said earlier, Budapest is one of the most beautiful places in Europe. But not only Budapest, the countryside offers also plenty of opportunities that is interesting for Egyptians, for leisure, for shopping, for culture, or for health tourism. So I think we have plenty of opportunities for developing our cooperation. Let me just mention the latest project. We have a city partnership between a Hungarian spa city called Keveck and the governorate of South Sinai, particularly Sharm el-Sheikh. And we are thinking about a new project to bring together, to know how with the in terms of spas and health tourism with the needs of our Egyptian partners. So I think this partnership between Keveck and Sharm el-Sheikh is a very significant one, and I have high hopes to have more good news about this in the future.
Also the field of cooperation in education and scholarships, because I believe in the 60s and the 70s there was a lot of scholarships that were donated by the Hungarian government to Egyptian scholars, where they started an education program of the for the higher education, PhDs program and masters. Could you tell us about that, please? Is there a field of cooperation also in the same field?
Sure. We have a glorious past in In the 1960s, 70s and 80s, we have had altogether 600 Egyptians who took a scientific degree from Hungarian universities. But after 1990, it was unfortunately interrupted until 2015, when the government of Hungary restarted a program granting 100 scholarships a year for Egyptian students for coming to Hungary to study, to take a degree from our universities. I think it is going very well. As I said, 100 scholarships a year. And this is really badly needed to build the bridges between our two countries, because this generation of young professionals and scientists is the hope. They will become the engine of our cooperation, not only the field of science, but also in terms of economic, culture, and other things as well. These students are free to choose whatever they like, whatever they would like to study in Hungary. Any Hungarian university is open for them. So I am very optimistic that we will see very good results and a very good added value by this new generation of young Egyptians graduating from Hungary in many fields.
And of course, we should not forget the cultural cooperation between your beautiful country in the field of music as well, and the opera, the Cairo Opera House. There was a Hungarian flair concert early this last year, and I believe this cooperation should go on, because a lot of Egyptians are interested in the classical music and tribute of the Hungarian classic music, right?
Sure, cultural cooperation is a very strong part of our relations. Last year, for example, we had the honor to perform a concert of the famous Hungarian composer László Lajta, the so-called Revolution Symphony.
I attended that. It was beautiful, yes.
Which makes us particularly proud, because it is called Revolution Symphony because of it commemorates of the revolution of 1956, which is our national day. But this is, besides that, we are proud of our culture, and we believe that that culture is one of the best ways to bring two nations together and to learn more about each other. So we are eager to continue this and to bring more cultural groups mutually to the country of each other.
Sir, it's always great to have you with us. Always very much informative and very much into the depths of the strong relations between Egypt and Hungary. And please promise us to come again, as always, because it's always enlightening to have you, sir, in our program.
Yes, thank you very much. And by this we come to the end of World of Info with His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Peter Keveck, Ambassador of Hungary in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Mohammed at the controls, I'm Najla Naguib. See you next Thursday, same time, same station, FM 95.4.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. It was my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.